Hey folks, this week I'm talking with Olaf Schulte and Lars Kiesow about Opencast. That's the project for recording lectures, uploading them, and coming soon, even a video portal built into it. You don't want to miss it, so stay tuned. This is FLOSS Weekly, episode 863, recorded Tuesday, February the 3rd. Opencast. That code is there for a reason. It's time for FLOSS Weekly. That's the show about free, libre, and open source software. I'm your host, Jonathan Bennett, and today we are having a revisit from a project from quite a while ago. We are talking Opencast, and that is, well, it's all about video and casting, but not, I don't think, in the same way that OBS is, or Video Ninja. No, Opencast is more about, it's open source video management, but it's more about academic institutions and places like that. So we're talking sort of a bigger, maybe more formal solution. But today, we've got a couple of the experts with us. We have Lars Kiesow, who's been an Opencast developer since 2009. And we've got Olaf Schulte, who's responsible for video management at Zurich, Switzerland, and has been supporting the Opencast project ever since 2007, and he joined the board in 2011. So we have a couple of real experts to, first off, tell us what exactly Opencast is, and then get into all of the nitty-gritty details. So to start with, welcome to both of you guys. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Jonathan, for having us.
Yes. And so,
thanks for having us.
Before I forget,
it's nice to be back.
Yeah, it's good to have you back. Before I forget, where are you guys talking to us from? I'm in the middle of the U.S. I'm in flyover country in Oklahoma. I don't think you guys are very close by me.
I'm in Zurich, Switzerland, where it's getting dark over time, so you will see that the lights are going down here over time.
Yes.
Still in my office, though.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, I'm at home already. So I'm visiting here from Osnabrück in northwestern Germany. It's also getting dark here. It's also actually beginning to snow right now.
Oh, fun. We just got done with some snow here in the U.S. For the sake of everyone listening, who is Lars and who is Olaf?
So I'm Lars.
And I'm Olaf.
All right. Very good. Makes sense. Okay, so what is Opencast? I gave my best impression of knowing what it's about, but I am not the expert here. It's up to you which one of you want to take this question. But if someone says, okay, let me put it this way: what's the problem that somebody has that they go, Opencast, that's the solution to it?
So I guess I take it, actually quite close when you say it's about open video and it's about streaming and it's about video recordings, but all related, or mostly related at least, to higher education. So you wouldn't actually run Opencast at home to, I don't know, have your DVD collection to stream somewhere or something like that. If you want to do that, technically you can, but just don't. It's not fun. However, if you run a school and I don't know, you have a lot of videos, a lot of people recording stuff, you may even have lecture halls where non-technical personnel wants to be recorded, then Opencast is all about this automation. It's also, there is, since we last spoke, development of a new video portal, so it's also about kind of a YouTube for your campus project, so larger scale, all of that, and lots of automation. So if you want a story to imagine how this works, imagine you are a lecturer and a lecturer of, I don't know, ancient Greek mythologies, something completely unrelated to technology. So you have no idea about technical stuff. You don't know, for example, how to record your lectures yourself. What you want is to just tell someone, well, please record me. And of course, you could send out people who then set up a camera and stuff like that. But that's actually a lot of work if you have a lot of lecturers, and that's extremely costly. Instead, what Opencast provides is that you have an integration in, for example, your room media, so whatever goes on your presentation can be automatically recorded by capture devices. And then as a lecturer, I just have to tick a box when I schedule my courses and say, I want to be recorded. I enter the lecture room, the camera turns on automatically, sounds being recorded automatically, and then even the video processing and stuff like that is mostly automatic. Of course, people can interact with that, so there's a manual video editor mode, as for example, but to the most part, people don't have to. And if you look at schools, so our school, for example, has about 50 to 60,000 videos recorded in Opencast, which you don't want to do manually. And we are far from being the largest school when it comes to recording.
So, boy, there's a whole bunch of different directions that I want to go with this all at once. We last talked to you guys, I think, in 2019?
Exactly, yeah.
There's been some things that's happened since then that are probably important. I know a lot of in the U.S. at least, a lot of high schools and even younger schools did a lot of virtual learning as a result of COVID and those things. Did that impact the project? Was that a big deal for you guys?
Absolutely. It was a major impact on our project and on the requests we had with respect to whatever form virtual learning can take. And that totally depends on the school you are at and the school's policies towards COVID and after COVID towards the new normal we found. So what happened first is that the number of recordings overall and the number of videos, sorry for the ambulance.
That's all right.
The number of recordings overall increased. So people doing virtual lectures, everything could be recorded, and people had to start and think about what to do with these recordings. And as Lars indicated, the number of recordings suddenly increased from a couple of thousands to 10 of thousands, which is something that you have to organize in a video management system of some way or another. Take the live streaming, for example. Most universities didn't do live streaming before COVID, and suddenly it became a necessity in order to reach students, which is also something that Opencast was able to do before, and we actually dealt with that part of the technology during COVID in order to increase or to decrease the latency, for example, because of the need for interaction in the virtual learning scenario we had in most schools. So I think that many schools saw the necessity to find a solution for all the videos they produced. If they had a video management systems, let alone whether that's Opencast or a commercial solution, they certainly had to find a way to deal with a large number of videos afterwards, how to store them and how to pay for storage in case you have a commercial system. Because obviously, the more videos you have in a commercial video systems, the more you have to pay for that, which in turn raises the question of whether you want to pay for older recordings being stored away and not being watched. That was pretty interesting to see how differently schools were dealing with that. We certainly benefited from that situation in that we were able to sort of develop new features. Lars can talk to that better than I can. We have a web-based do-it-yourself solution for recording called Opencast Studio, where teachers can sit at home, which is what you did at the time, and record their lectures in order for students to see that, something we didn't have. So I think it's fair to say that overall Opencast as a product and as a project benefited from COVID. It's not a nice thing to say, but it's a fact.
It's the reality of the situation. There were some industries and products that really took a hit, took a hit as a result, and others did very, very well. You mentioned the kind of the dichotomy between an enterprise, a paid solution, and Opencast. Is there crossover there as well? If someone says, I want to use this neat open source project, but I don't want to be the sysadmin for it, what's the solution there look like?
So if you are a school and deciding on whether to either buy a commercial system or use Opencast, you don't have to run that for yourself on-prem per se. So there are different options. When we started out and when we first met in 2019, I think it's fair to say that most of the Opencast systems we saw were running on-prem and had a system administrator at that local universities. But also due to COVID and also due to the increasing demand of schools that were not as huge as the schools initially involved in Opencast, there were different models. So for example, we now have a number of service providers who can run Opencast for you in the cloud, so that you can use it as a school without that system administrator sitting by your desk. Also, we saw a number of projects where one institution was providing services towards other higher education institutions, in the sense of one institution having that system administrator and other smaller schools benefiting from that. So there is actually a number of settings in which you can run Opencast without a system administrator.
Have any of those things allowed the project to bring on some developers full time? Is there what is the funding model of all of this look like? I suppose is the question there. Maybe that's a question for Lars.
I can certainly answer that.
Sure.
So now I'm actually working directly for a university. Back then, when the growth started during COVID, I was working for a non-profit that was actually helping schools with running Opencast and with mostly running this on premise. And I can tell you that we started out with, I think, about 6 engineers. At the end of COVID, there were about 20 engineers. And most of them were actually working on Opencast. To be fair, most of that work went towards the customers and setting this up locally and solving local problems. But a lot of that actually goes also in the direction of the project. And what I, for example, found pretty cool back then with my previous employer, that they have for every contract a margin of 20% of all time spent on this project actually goes to the open source project directly. So that's time that is being spent on the project directly. And the other thing is that, I mean, lots of the customers essentially here are schools, and they don't really compete in that area so much. So lots of them contributing back as well. So if you actually look at Opencast now, there's still a number of full-time employees working at Opencast. We looked earlier when we were waiting here, and we have 18 committers right now. So that's core committers with commit rights directly to the projects, which is still active. And yeah, I think that's quite a lot. And most of them are employed somewhere to work on the project, actually. So I said right at the beginning that not a lot of people would run this at home, so we don't get a lot of individual contributors who say, oh yes, I want to do that. We actually get this sometimes because students find a bug and they want to fix it, which is pretty nice, but most of the contributions actually come from people employed by a school or something like that, or by one of these service providers.
Yeah, very cool.
But let me just add that this certainly sounds quite good when you talk about 18 committers, for example. But you have to keep in mind that they are employed at an institution. So we're not organizing them as a project without sort of coordinating the universities as well. And what can always happen is that universities, for example, have local needs that their developers have to look at first. So, for example, during COVID, some schools suddenly started to look into certain features that weren't that interesting for Opencast in general. So they were missing from the project at the time, or are missing today because of other things that have to happen at their particular school. So it's very much a coordinated effort. There's not a lot of money flowing around. We do have some sponsors, institutions as well as commercial sponsors. And I think it's fair to say that we only have one developer who's actually the quality assurance manager also for the project, who is sort of employed by the project. But the other 17 committers then basically are coming from higher education institutions committed to Opencast, but to a certain level. So there's no one who can call on them and tell them what to do. You always have to coordinate them and find something that is interesting enough for those 18 institutions. Actually, it's a smaller number. For those institutions who are then willing to make their developers work for Opencast at that particular time, which is sometimes quite difficult. But I think that's something that other open source projects also will face.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to ask nicely.
You have to ask nicely, and you also have to present them the advantages, which is very easy. For example, if you build a new video portal, everyone is very excited and wants to have that video portal right now. But if you go to the back end of your system and want to fix something which is totally unattractive in terms of decision makers at universities,
right.
Well, I'm not sure we can afford that. Can we look into this next year? It's very much a thing you have to convince them of.
Yes, I understand that. Okay, so let's see here. I'm curious how this actually works. The idea of automatically recording in lecture halls. And when you first said that, the thing that just immediately came to mind is like a Raspberry Pi strapped to the ceiling running off of PoE with a webcam hanging off of it. And it's like that's probably exactly what you do in many of these cases, isn't it?
You know, it's actually quite funny because when the first Raspberry Pi came out, I was back then still a student, and I thought, well, can I build a capture device from this? Actually, that's not true. When the first camera module came out, not the first Raspberry Pi. And yes, I did that. And some schools actually tried employing that. But in the end, most nowadays actually buy their devices from vendors. There are big technology companies like Extron Electronics, like Epifan, like Edina AREC, and so on and so forth, where you can actually buy devices compatible with Opencast. And the way it works, to oversimplify the whole thing, is you have essentially a calendar for each room, where you make entries and basically just say, okay, from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. there will be an event here. Here's the name and the lecturer and so on. So you add some metadata, and the capture device will then look at this schedule and see, okay, I need to start recording now. There can be more integrations, like, for example, we have displays showing people that the recording starts right now. We even have PTZ cameras, so they can turn and so on. And they're usually turned towards the wall, so people don't feel like we were watching them all day. And they have to then go and turn to the direction of the lecturer and things like that. You can have more integration in that. But essentially, if you boil it down to very, very simple how it works, there's a schedule, the device looks at the schedule, records that, and this all happens then locally in the lecture. So you can even lose the network connection or whatever. And afterward, it will then automatically upload this to a central server, or mostly it's a server cluster, where then a workflow happens, which is fully customizable, which is great and bad at the same time, because you can do very weird things in there if you really want to. But also it's great because you can do stuff like automatic subtitling if you want to. You can do picture-in-picture videos, or you can have them as separate streams, and so on and so forth. You can integrate your editor where you have a manual editing step. But unless you have such a manual editing step, all of this will run automatically, and then it will publish the video to somewhere. And for a lot of people, that is nowadays either the learning management system, which is essentially a website where schools have their entries for courses and so on. So all the course information are at one place, and Opencast can speak to the most well-known systems and have an integration in that, so that students actually have one place to find all material related to course, including the video. Or the alternative to that is, we talked earlier very briefly about Tubira, so the video portal. We have essentially YouTube for your campus, so that's also an alternative. However, there are more modules, and things change from time to time. So as an old-time Opencast developer, I still remember that Opencast could, at the beginning, actually produce DVDs. So you could theoretically burn that. No one was ever using that, but it was an idea.
Yeah.
And later on, people came up with different ideas where you want to publish something like that. But the most well-used are either the learning management system or the video portal, especially if you have public videos, which schools quite often have.
Yeah, very cool. Is it possible to use something like OBS to feed video in? I know some of the places I've seen, not exactly the education realm, but lectures and things like that, people will have a computer at the back running OBS and doing the recording there. What does it look like to integrate that with Opencast?
So the funny thing is, we actually wrote an OBS plugin at one point. It's not actively maintained anymore. Okay. Because most people just buy these devices, and those people who do manual recordings, and a lot of people actually use OBS for manual recordings if they want to have a little bit more functionality, and that's a project we recommend. Then usually we just tell them, at the end, just upload the video.
Upload it afterwards.
So you can just do that. But there are different implementations for these capture devices. There are also open source implementations, so you can just do that if you want to, and take that. And it's actually not hard. It's essentially a few HTTP requests to make if you want to build something which is special for you. So whatever you need is essentially what you can get.
Yeah, interesting. So you talked about, I usually wait for the end of the show for this, but I'm going to do it now. You talked about that you can, with this automated system for your video editing, you can do weird things. And it sounds like there are stories there. And what I usually will ask at the end of the show is, what's the weirdest thing you've seen somebody do with this project? And it's a perfect time to lay it out there. What are some of the weird things that you've seen people do?
I mean, I think if you're talking about the weirdest thing I've seen, then it's actually a talk which should be online somewhere, of one developer who proved that the workflow engine in Opencast is Turing complete. So you can actually build programs within the workflow engine, which, you shouldn't, but you can. And other than that, I don't know. I think what's very impressive is always if you have these really, really big installations, things like that. When you say weird things, then you sometimes find local integrations or workarounds for really interesting stuff, because we still had this hardware lying around which we had to integrate, and we have been using that for years, so we still want to continue using that. And so you write an integration which then pushes stuff to, I don't know, a file folder, which is then automatically being picked up by Opencast, passed with some weird regular expressions. You can find all of that. But Yeah.
Yeah. Is there somebody out there using?
That's not what you should do.
That's not what you should do, right? Is there somebody out there using Opencast to record their fish tank or that sort of thing?
Haven't come across them yet.
Haven't come. How about like churches? It almost seems like somebody, if they wanted to, could use Opencast to do service recordings for churches.
Actually, so looking a few years back, we had the RPM repository, the package repository, where you could register, and there are actually a number of churches who did register for that. They are not active in the community, so we don't ever see them, but we know that there are some.
Yeah,
it's a big thing in the US, isn't it? Because we haven't seen that in Europe. I mean, there are churches these days using, in general, video management systems or live streaming to do that, but that's coming from the US, isn't it?
I think it is. I'm not sure exactly why that's a cultural phenomenon here and not other places. I know it did become a lot more popular during COVID, but. Yeah, it's interesting, but it's something that I've been the guy sitting in the back running the computer before, so that's why it comes to mind to ask.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. But we're basically all about educational institutions, admittedly, and we do have seen some other use cases. Mm-hmm. For example, that there are more towards the video management side of things, where lecture capture is not essential. So, for example, the whole idea of having an archive where the original file sits is something that some people find attractive. Think about libraries and stuff. But it's all, the total majority is in an educational setting. I think that might change over time when the video portal sort of gets better known, because that is could also be interesting to smaller institutions, NGOs or stuff. Who have videos and don't want to store them on YouTube or need them locally under their own control. But as far as Opencast as a lecture capture system is concerned, obviously the pace is set by universities mainly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that is an interesting thought. One of the problems that I've seen with people that don't want to use YouTube, what they really don't like, is that it can't control the ads, and so to put it into that same sort of religious service setting, because again, this is what I have a bit of experience with. It's like, we're going to stream our service to YouTube, but the advertisement that someone's going to get in the mid-roll of the service is, and it's just something completely off in left field. And it's like, that's not the experience that we want for our churchgoers.
And the same goes for your school, doesn't it?
Yes.
I mean,
absolutely.
we do have other systems here in Europe who pursue this idea of YouTube for your campus, and one of their main selling arguments is that it's ad-free and that it's under your control what people can actually see.
Right.
So I'm sort of surprised that some schools are not bothered with that, but it still makes a difference whether you can afford to look into open source alternatives in general. I'm not saying that it's completely accessible in the way that YouTube and other commercial opportunities are available, but sort of the threshold has become definitely lower compared to when we last spoke. As I said, the necessity to have a system administrator who could grasp what Opencast can do was obvious at the time, and this has changed during COVID significantly, so that smaller institutions can also afford to look into this, and no one has to go for YouTube when they want live streaming.
Mm-hmm. What does the process look like of setting up an Opencast instance? Like, I'm assuming this runs on a Linux server somewhere, but like, walk me through sort of kind of the steps and the technologies that make it work.
So if you just want the bare bone Opencast, take any Linux server. We have Debian packages. We have so we official support Debian, Ubuntu, all of the Red Hat flavors. So we have RPMs, or you can just run the container images we have. So if you want to run this in Kubernetes or in Docker or something like that, that all works. And if you just want to start out, a single machine works just fine. You said there is a video out there showing you how to set up an entire Opencast system in half an hour. So that can be done. I did that live. And it's essentially just, at the repository, install the packages at the database, do that, you're up and go, and can run Opencast. What's more interesting is obviously if you want to scale it or if you want some integration. Let's just assume that you want integration in your rooms. We talked about that earlier. So the options you have is either you buy something or you build it yourself. If you want to build it yourself, you need any form of video capture card. I mean, they are quite cheap nowadays. So you have these USB dongles, which you can use. If you want to use that, that's another question because of reliability. But there are also more expensive options out there if you want to spend the money. And then you would install the capturing software on that and bring that to your lecture hall. The alternative is to buy something from a vendor and put that in. That's integration into rooms. Of course, then there's also the question about how you want or where you want your videos to end up. If you just set up a single server, you get video links out of that, you get a player out of that, so you can take the player and integrate it, paste it to your WordPress, no problem. However, you have to decide if you have an LMS. We have for some of the larger LMS just native plugins where you can just install that. Let's say you run Moodle, you install the Moodle plugin for Opencast, you enter the URL of your Opencast server and credential, and that's it, essentially. The more you want to integrate, of course, the more complex it goes. The other side, as I said earlier, is scaling. If you're a small school, you have a few videos a day, a single service is just fine. If you do have more, so we have sometimes 12, 14, 20 recordings a day, and these recordings are not 5 minutes, these are usually 2 hours. So there's actually a lot going on, and if you want to process all this video, what you want to do is to scale, and that's relatively easy with Opencast. You can, instead of setting up all in one system, just set up a number of systems, and there are different flavors like the admin node, the presentation node where the video ends up when the player is delivered from, and then there are worker nodes, and you can essentially have an arbitrary number of worker nodes depending on how many videos you want to process. But you don't have to start with setting up, 50 machines with all your workers, because just start small, and you can always scale up later on.
What's the underlying technology that makes this work? Is it does it run on top of Apache? Are we talking about a big Java server thing, or I hope not?
Yes, it's I'm sorry about that, but yes, it's actually an enterprise Java stack from. Opencast is quite old, so we started 2008 or 9, I think, was a 1.0 release. That's a while ago, and the underlying technology has shifted slightly over the years, but essentially it's a Java OSGI app. With actually, I think, about 180 or even more services. So it's a microservice architecture. But yes, it's Java, it's OSGI. And with such an actually sometimes quite old infrastructure, it's actually interesting sometimes, though, since I was around for a long time, you see the new developers coming in and looking at that and asking, why the hell is it working like this.
I can tell you why it is, Lars, because at the time when we were trying to get some funding, there were two words which had to be included into the funding documentation, and that was OSGI and microservices, and that was the thing at the time. So, like service-oriented architecture. If you haven't got these buzzwords in your funding papers, then you won't get the money at the time.
So how are you integrating AI into your function, your program now?
Like everyone else, we're trying our best. That's
about half a joke because that's the buzzword.
It is.
But I'm also curious if it's something you're looking at.
It's pretty obvious because when you look at these 2-hour videos, there's a lot of metadata in there you can work with. It's basically, we will see a presentation in these videos. So that's words, that's content you can use over time, like metadata over time. And then there's obviously the spoken word, which is transcribed and can be contextualized with the content. And that's the ideal basis, I would assume, for any AI system to work with, which is why, for example, the use of that particular video to create summaries or to create shorter versions of that video has been presented as a use case in the Opencast context. We have also set up a small video portal where you can do quizzes based on the video content, obviously like the AI-driven tutor the university is not able to pay for anymore because they invested into AI. And that's the most obvious things when it comes to learning. I think that in general, our metadata should go into the whole ecosystem of AI learning because the metadata is so interesting. The connection between the slides being shown and the speaker talking is good metadata to use
for training.
For training, for example.
Yeah, okay.
On the other end, there's the back end of Opencast, and Lars and I were just talking about that. If you imagine that recording we're doing is 2 hours, but we're starting a couple of minutes before the lecture actually starts in order not to miss the start.
Right.
And there might also be a break in the lecture, which we want also to be edited. And we want the end, which is also longer than the actual recording, to be edited also automatically. And we are currently using FFmpeg for that, if I'm not mistaken.
Everything is FFmpeg. Even if you weren't using FFmpeg, it would still be FFmpeg doing the work.
Correct. And we're happy to use FFmpeg, obviously.
Yes.
But obviously we presume, and we will sort of have a test case for that as well in the near future, that with AI it's easier to do that. And Lars, you can tell them what you think might be done in that context in order to better detect when the actual lecture starts, when there is a break, and when the actual lecture finishes.
Yeah, to tell you a little bit about this. So what is AI is also a good question, because lots of things we are talking about right now, you would have called them media analysis 5 years ago or 10 years ago. But for example, to take what Olaf just suggested is that we have automatic subtitles for everything. And so instead of going and using just the audio level, and that's what we used with FFmpeg filters before, and say, okay, the audio became quieter here, let's just cut this away. That doesn't always work reliable because people are running around in the lecture hall. It's before the lecture actually starts and talk and whatever. However, if you actually look at the transcription, so the subtitling, which you can do automatically now, it actually becomes a lot easier to detect, okay, here we have coherent speech and before we don't, so we can cut kind of automatically there. And the second thing is what we usually do. So you could just say, okay, let's cut this completely automatically. What we can also do, and what we most often actually do, is to just generate suggestions, where someone can actually take a look at this, just say, oh yeah, that looks fine, go on. If someone detects it, but it's not fine because, I don't know, they have a private conversation at the beginning or whatever, which can happen because people forget, then they can still cut that away.
That's actually an interesting question that I thought about earlier, and I wasn't sure whether it applied or not, but there are... We've entered a realm where there are multiple new privacy laws that... I'm an open source and a privacy enthusiast, but I would say that some of these privacy laws are insane because of the things that they attempt to require businesses to do. Like, for example, the right to be forgotten. I have problems with that. But anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. But do you guys find that that your project runs into any of those privacy laws, like in unexpected ways? So, for example, this idea of you accidentally caught a private conversation at the beginning of the lecture. I imagine that becomes even more legally interesting if those are minors that you're recording. And does any of that liability stick to the project, or is that all in the realm of the universities or whoever is implementing, actually running the system?
So two things here. The good thing is that a core base of the committers actually comes from Germany. So we had very strict privacy laws before the other rest of the world had very strict privacy laws.
Hopefully you had enough time to get them right. We're closer.
And it was quite interesting early in the project when someone from North America implemented something, and we just said, sorry, but we can't deploy that. That won't work for us.
Yeah.
With that in mind, we actually have a lot of things to make sure that something like that doesn't happen. But at the end of the day, it's up to the institutions to work around that. And for example, just to go away from the project, to go to our institution and how we run that, we are working very closely with our privacy officer. And we have things like there is a recording sign at the door if you enter that okay, this can be recorded. If you book yourself into a course which will be recorded, you get notified in advance. And also, I said earlier that there are different integrations, like the camera is turning away, or there is a display which actually shows you that the next recording will begin in 10 minutes, and then it turns red, and you see that, okay, the recording starts right now. So there are lots of things you can actually do, and depending on your needs and what you hash out with your privacy officer, essentially, you can work with that quite well.
Yeah, I appreciate that you guys have worked to sort of get that right and take the, obviously what's legally required, but also it sounds like some common sense things that should have been there. I've seen instances where open source projects are required to collect more data about people in order to be compliant with the privacy laws. Like, you've got to be able to delete everything about a person. They have to be able to send these deletion requests. And it's like, well, we didn't have anything that we could have deleted, but in order to comply with the law, we're going to have to collect this information to be able to delete it. And I know it sounds silly, but it's things like that actually do happen because lawyers and laws and the people writing the laws don't necessarily talk to the people that will have to live underneath them. So I'm glad that is something that you guys have already been aware of, worked out, and it sounds like have some reasonable solutions in place. I've got a note here to ask about technological issues with being mature open source software. Is that mostly just you're running in Java, or is there more to that?
There's more to come.
There's more to come. What?
I mean, I said earlier that it's interesting to be the old guy, and people ask you why this insane thing happened, and the reason is just because I mentioned earlier that Opencast could create DVD images. No one needs that anymore, but that had to be built in, and then later on people misused that, let's just label it like that, for something else,
Right.
and it drifted farther and farther away from where we are. So,
We can't remove the DVD burning code because it's going to break the new AI thing that we just added. Yes, I'm very aware with how that works.
Essentially that. And I think we are not necessarily bad at throwing old code away. As a developer, I really love doing that. That's also always so nice to just throw this big old thing away and have something shiny new.
Yes.
But right now, for example, we have definitely a bigger discussion about how to restructure, for example, data model. And restructuring data model means a lot of things needs to change. But on the other hand, this is something that is kind of required. I mean, it's not necessarily required to get the functionality because the functionality is there. But if you look at technology and how that changed, for example, storage technology, is that nowadays S3 is a storage standard basically that everyone has, and that becomes deployed more and more, even in local instances if they want to use that. And the integration in Opencast is, let's just say, a little bit sketchy. You can use that, but you have some certain drawbacks because of decisions that were made 15 years ago. And that's something we need to change, and something like that can come up from time to time. Another would be, we have an OSGI base, Java OSGI base, and we used some Spring components back in the day. They worked pretty nicely with each other. At some point, the Spring project decided to not use OSGI anymore, which is quite challenging if one of your core libraries doesn't work with one of your other core libraries anymore. And you can work around that, but sometimes you just have to redo something in the backend that no one wants to see. Fortunately for this specific instance, we actually got state funding for that, which is really nice. So we have a few years to get this right, and to have a few people working on that, which I really appreciate, because something like this is really hard to sell to a single institution or even a couple of institutions, because no one sees that anything happens. At the end, you have the exact same thing. Now, it will make everything in the future easier, but that's not what the decision makers necessarily see. So, working with technical depth is always challenging, and working with mature code base, which is quite old at this time, sometimes it's quite interesting.
Yes.
But at the same time, it's also good to, we have new committers that are relatively recently joined the program. And we have old folks like us who have been with the project for quite a long time, and it's good to have both, because you see that new ideas come in and they want to change something. At the same time, you have people who actually can explain, that's there for this reason that dates back 10 years.
It's not a good reason, but there is a reason. Yeah.
Sometimes it's even good reason.
Well, sure. But
there's definitely a reason.
Yes.
If it's good or bad, that no one knows.
I've recently been able to start a bit of new employment working on a code base, and I also set my own. I basically set my own priorities for it, which means that I've got to go in and kill some of that old tech debt. Like, all of these devices have to have this particular pin defined. We don't do anything with that pin, but if it's not set, compilation breaks. Let's figure out why and actually fix that. And I was able to do that with a couple of different things, and it's so satisfying to finally send the pull request in and get it merged.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's great. So you talked about having new committers, and I asked you about adding AI on purpose, but the other side of this that I've got to ask about is, have you seen the AI slop problem? have any of your new committers been getting a little over eager with the LLMs in writing their pull requests?
Fortunately, I would say for pull requests, not necessarily. They still at least seem good, so that they actually seem to do exactly what they should do. I mean, at least it's not worse than before, because bugs always happen. But we have a review process in that, so I don't think that we've really seen anything worse with that. Where we actually did see that is that we have a way of reporting security issues and stuff like that. And we get a lot more notices in that, and a lot of these notices are just,
they're bogus.
AI slop. So they're very well written, and essentially at the end of the day, it's something like, we can reproduce all the API calls to this, use the default password, which is admin at Opencast, and you look at this and you think, well, yeah, that's our demonstration server, which is reset on a daily basis. So people are supposed to be able to use that, and they're supposed to use the default credentials, which are even written on the landing page if you go to that server, and it's a surprising number of that what we actually get.
Yeah. Is there actually a bug bounty for the project, or is this just people looking to farm essentially reputation?
It's actually just people farming some reputation. We don't have a bug bounty program for that.
Something I've seen people begin to talk about is that AI will probably kill bug bounties in the long term. It's not going to be sustainable. I've actually seen at least one project go so far as to say not just issues, but to close pull requests from anyone outside the project, because they were getting so much of this. They put out a statement and just said, we're not going to, at least I think the way they put it was, until GitHub gives us better tools to deal with this, we're just not going to accept pull requests from anyone outside the organization. And it's like, that's kind of scary that we've hit that point. And I'm really glad to hear that you guys are not seeing that. And I think maybe the fact that you're in such a niche, such an academic niche, has sort of sheltered you from some of that. But hopefully it's not coming to you, because it is a pain to deal with.
Yeah, if you take a look at any of the talks from the main curl developer, for example, I don't think it's actually nice to be in his shoes for the last 2 or 3 years. If you look at bug bounties and things like that, he spent a lot of time on that. His talks are very good in that direction if you're interested, but it's not nice that how he had to work with that. And he actually killed his bug bounty program, I think, a few weeks ago.
Yeah, Dan Steinberg, we've actually had him on the show before. And yeah, I saw that they were one of the ones that they killed the bug bounty program. Curl is in the running for the most installed software in the world, right? Because it's in so many different places. And Dan did something. He's humored about it now, but he put his email address into the curl license. And he gets emails from people completely off the wall, and I bet he's now getting emails from LLM agents that are completely off the wall for similar reasons. But he talks about, like, if somebody's in their car and they're poking through the infotainment system and they're looking for help, they're looking for an email address. Well, one of the places that they might be able to find an email address is in the terms of service, the licenses, the curl license. His email address is going to be in there in the license. And so he'll get, please unlock my car for me. Poor guy. Yeah, super interesting. So on the other side, do you know, are your developers actually making appropriate use of AI to write some of these new features? Like I'm not ashamed to admit, I've got a, through the project I mentioned just a minute ago, I've got a Copilot, I don't know if it's Copilot Pro or whatever they call it. We've got the Copilot subscription, and I use it not a whole lot, but I use it some, like the the code completion engine is the one that I found useful. Because it's like, either I need to go search on exactly how that function call goes, or I can just start typing it and Copilot will go, this is probably what you mean. Yes, that's what I mean. Hit the tab button. Like, so is that something the developers there are making use of?
I can't tell you if on the person-by-person basis if they're using AI or not. That's up to them. So we had a reasonable discussion about what we expect from people if they use AI and things like that. But other than that, they can. And to be quite honest with you, I mean, some of them will definitely use AI. Mm-hmm. Some of them will absolutely not use AI. I mean, it's a very controversial thing, and at the end of the day, for us, it's just okay. If it goes through a review and it works, that's okay. We had some additional discussions about, for example, if you are not just using the autocomplete for small things, but actually have some larger code written by AI or something like that, you should label that. Right. And that just makes it easier for everyone else. But do I know any pull request which was written with AI? Yes, I do. I'm absolutely certain about that, because we did play around with stuff and we had we asked Copilot to try and fix something which at least one time worked well, other times it didn't.
It worked once.
So having fun with that, definitely. So people need to know how this works, I think, and then they have to decide if they want to use it or not. And hopefully they will use it responsible. I mean, I'm probably a little bit too native for that, and they won't really use it responsible, but at least I hope they will.
Right. Yeah. I think that's where we're all at. We hope our people use it responsibly. All right. I've got a note here that apparently there are some organizational challenges that have popped up, and I'm curious what that is. What are some of the challenges that as an organization you guys have faced?
I think you should add what are the challenges you face as a small organization, because with the number of committers, you can imagine that everything else that has to be organized is organized by a small number of people as well.
Yes.
And most of them come from Europe these days, from German-speaking countries in particular. Mm-hmm. Now you have to remember that we originate from the US, so UC Berkeley started the whole Opencast thing.
Oh, okay.
But over time, there were less institutions in the US interested in this, which is somewhat interesting with respect to the fact that the open source alternatives seem to be more popular in Europe these days, in general. Mm-hmm. So, for example, if you think learning management systems, I think that Moodle, for example, is very popular here as an open source LMS. And not so much in the Northern American area, and the US in particular. And that's the same for Opencast. So we had committers and contributors and users, adopters, as we call them, from the States in the early days, but they sort of dropped off. It was actually pretty difficult to sell an open source video management systems to universities, because you had that whole system of procurement and you had to provide a certain level of service, right, which was difficult for a small project to actually realize and submit like something comparable to what the commercial competitors can commit as a paper is difficult. So yada, yada, yada. We basically are not that present in North America anymore. And as a consequence, everything else happens in Europe, which makes financial and organizational transactions very difficult. So we are based with Apereo, which is a foundation in New Jersey. That's for historical reason. Mm-hmm. It's a very good umbrella organization for us. So there are a number of small open source projects in Apereo, which basically all share the same idea of providing open source software for higher educational institutions, which is a perfect fit for us. Problem is that they are all, or Apereo is sitting in the US.
Right.
So if we have our conference in Europe, say Spain, and we have a conference dinner, the payment has to go via the US in order to pay the restaurant in Spain, which is quite difficult and painful and expensive, as you can imagine.
Yes.
So over time, we decided that we are becoming or have become a more European project, and that we sort of had to move on and sort of rebuild that in our organizational structure, which is why we left or are about to leave Apereo, which is still a perfect fit for us when it comes to the whole idea of open source in education. But we're now moving to Linux Foundation Europe because it seems to be a fit, as you heard, in a technological sense, and they also have smaller educational product under their hood, still allowing us via Linux Foundation to serve North America in case that's something we want to do. Yeah. So that's what we're doing this year, basically, from an organizational perspective.
And that's your fiscal host, right? That's essentially who that's. So
yes,
you guys
correct.
For those that don't know, most open source projects, and I'm going to speak at this from a U.S. perspective because I know the business law here much better than Europe, but most open source projects, they may have some funds, in often cases not enough funds to really be worth trying to build their own, LLC. Trying to become an actual nonprofit is very difficult in the U.S. specifically because, and I've been told this from another open source project, writing code is not considered to be charitable activities. And so that makes it really challenging to try to get nonprofit status for an open source project in the US. So because of all of these, what we have is these things called fiscal hosts, which is like an umbrella organization. They hold the actual, they are the LLC, or maybe there'll be a sub S or a C corp or a trade corp in many cases. And then the individual projects will just exist underneath them, and they sort of get the coverage for all of the business sort of things, and they'll hold bank accounts in lieu of the project, that sort of thing. So refer to it as a fiscal host. I thought everybody in open source knew this, and then I had a chat with a buddy that's been doing open source for years and years, and he's like, "What's a fiscal host?" Everybody does not know this. Okay, noted.
Yeah, but the situation you describe is exactly what happened to us. So when we looked into this, we also thought that we might establish something on our own, which basically turned out to be impossible at the size we are. So there are legal entities in Luxembourg and Belgium in particular here in Europe, which some of the larger institutions are sort of using, and Linux Foundation Europe as well. But that's not something a small project like ours can basically use. You either have to pay too much or you have to organize too much and know too much about the legal entities and the resulting financial, transactional, organizational implications in order to deal with that. And that's why this whole idea of having an umbrella institution for smaller open source projects makes perfect sense for me, because then there's someone who makes sure that our license is good, our trademarks are good if you have them, the financial situation is good, someone is taking care of that, someone is looking into other fiscal activities and so on. It's just a shame that there is that sort of difference between the North American and the European sphere, which we're leaning towards Europe these days.
Yeah, in the US at least, it is almost trivial to set up an LLC. Like, someone that knows what they're doing can get one going in most states in about 30 minutes. I mean, literally, you can get something up that fast to be able to go to a bank and set up a bank account. I imagine in Europe it's probably a little bit more complicated, maybe a little higher barrier for entry. One could disagree which approach to that is the better one, and probably it just depends upon the scenario you're talking about. But it is a bit different.
Yeah, we actually did ponder that as well, but decided against that too, because all in all, the size of the project doesn't allow for us to spend too much effort and resources into organization. And that's why we think that being part of a larger organization makes perfect sense for us as a small open source project.
Yeah, absolutely. most, well, I don't know about most, a lot of open source projects take this path of using one of these fiscal hosts. It's very popular for the reasons that we've talked about, right? You almost have to have something. Like once you hit a certain size, once there's money involved, you've got to have something just to keep everybody out of trouble. So that makes sense to me.
I mean, you have to have something like that. And honestly, the people involved with the project usually don't want to spend all of their time dealing with money-related things and law-related things and so on. I mean, that's no fun.
Yeah, to be able to do it in-house, you've almost got to be big enough to have full-time employees, right? And so you've got to have somebody like me that sort of knows what they're doing and can do it full-time. And even at that, the project that I'm in, we still have a fiscal host for the open source side of things. So, it's a lot to have to deal with. All right, let's. So we talked about one of the plans that you guys have for 2026, and that is coming under the Linux Foundation Europe as your umbrella organization. What else is coming in 2026 and in the future?
So before Lars talks about the various projects he's involved in, I'm just going to mention that video portal again because it's pretty important for us in a strategic sense, in that we're still moving towards getting Opencast into the direction of medium-sized and small-sized institutions, and maybe even institutions beyond the universities we are currently serving. So that's one of the main focuses for us from an organizational, from a marketing perspective, to put the video portal to Vera in the front space in order to make people realize, well, I'm using this video portal and there's a Opencast beneath which I don't see. And that's pretty interesting for those smaller institutions. So that's from a board perspective. We're having a board to sort of share the strategic perspectives of Opencast. That's pretty important for us at the moment, and Lars can talk to a number of the other projects we are looking into for the next couple of months and years.
Just before we go to that,
Yep.
is Tabira the name of the video portal?
Yes, and it seems to be a portal in Japanese.
Ah, okay. I wonder where that came from. So I've navigated to tabira.opencast.org, and I'm seeing lots of cat videos, which that's what the internet is
it's
for, right?
supposed to be for cat videos. Yes, that's correct.
That's why we have the internet.
If you stumble upon a dog video, that's my dog, actually.
This is interesting. I could see this, the video portal, because it looks good. I could see this taking on life outside of just the even just the educational sphere, because businesses want to be able to put videos up somewhere, and I don't know that any of the existing solutions are really great. So I mean, this could have some legs for you. Let's see where that goes. All right, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
Continue.
Kind of hope that happens, at least for smaller schools and so on. By the by, tabira.opencast.org, that's the test server if you want to actually see a few of our conference recordings. They are kind of production Tabira. You can go to explore.opencast.org.
But he can upload his cat videos on the other demo server.
There you go.
Exactly. That's what Opencast is all about, cat videos. Actually, we have an internal channel called OpenCats as a twist of two characters.
Nice.
Going for a reasonable additional things to happen in 2026. We already talked about backend infrastructure, data model stuff. Really boring, but really interesting. Really important.
Interesting
and
to a very small group of people, right?
Exactly. So that's hopefully happening. But we also will hopefully see a few other things. For example, we have this editor we briefly talked about. This is not only for video editing, but it also has things like subtitle editing and so on. And there will be a few extensions to that. One is that there will be a new chapter editor, The other thing is that you want to have an interactive video editor. What that essentially means is that you can bring quizzes or additional information or something like that into your video, and you can have, I don't know, your video pause at some point and ask, we just talked about ancient Greek, and what is the name of, I don't know, the capital of Sparta at that time, which hopefully anyone can then answer. And things like that is something that hopefully will improve things a little bit towards the learning experience related to these educational videos. There's also things when you look at hardware encoding and things like that. Essentially, this is a side effect of AI, because there are now lots of GPUs at institutions, and well, you can use them. Did we just lose Jonathan?
No, I've got you guys still.
He's there. I can see him.
Okay.
Oh, good.
Go ahead. You've got GPUs lying around in Osnabrück, obviously.
We got some GPUs lying around in Osnabrück, yeah. So that's definitely something that's happening in 2026, hopefully. And then there are also some...
Oh, now I've lost him. I think...
Did you mute you? Yep.
Yeah, I lost him for a second. Let's see. Now we've got him back. Give me that last 30 seconds again.
Okay, let's just start with the AI integration then. So what we've seen in the last few years that people deploy a lot of GPUs, and so what we can do now is actually also reuse these resources, the GPU resources, for things like hardware encoding and things like that. So that's also interesting. And of course, and Olaf already talked about this very briefly, there will be some form of AI integration. I'm almost certain that will happen in some form or another. So I think that's the broader strokes of 2026 for Opencast.
Yep. Now, I've got to say, you sent me down a rabbit hole because you said the capital of Sparta, and anybody should know that. And I went, wasn't Sparta a city-state? Isn't Sparta the capital? Yes, Wikipedia agrees with me. I'm not losing my mind. Trick question. That's terrible.
Hopefully everyone knows
that's the best interactive video you can have with a trick question.
I suppose. Makes you go and look up the article on it and read about it.
Yeah.
It's fun. All right. Let's see. We're getting close to the end of our time, and it has been a super fascinating conversation. So let me ask you guys this. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that we should have? I know we've talked about a bunch of different things. You got to think back through all of it. But is there anything anything burning that you really want to get out?
Maybe very briefly, if you happen to be in the United Kingdom, there will be the International Summit at the end of this month. So if you want to meet us in person, 24th to 27th of February in Manchester.
Very cool. Yeah, I will be in Germany just a couple of weeks after that. I'm going to be at Embedded World there in Nuremberg. So, very fun. I don't know if anybody that knows me is going to be close enough to try to do any sort of meetup, but I'm letting folks know that I'll be there. You can wave at me as I go over, right? All right, so let's see. I already asked you guys what the weird things were that people did, and you told me nobody was using it to watch their fish, which I was a little sad about. Somebody out there, you need to set this up just to have a live aquarium cam. But what now? I do have a couple of final questions. I am required to ask each of you, and I do get in trouble if I don't. You guys probably remember these. Let's start with Lars, and that is, what's your favorite text editor and scripting language?
So I definitely said Vim last time. And I think I still go with Vim because I actually use it quite a lot still. I do use other stuff by now, so it's not Vim and Vim only since back then, but I still use it quite a lot, so let's go with that.
All right.
And for the scripting language, it's probably Python. I actually use it quite a lot.
Yeah, that's a very, very common answer these days. All right, and Olaf, to you as well, the same two questions. Text editor and scripting language.
What I thought that you might have realized by now that I'm not able to tell you what my scripting language is because I'm obviously not a developer and not into the technical side of things here at Opencast, which is why my text editor still is Microsoft Word, because we are a Microsoft school here at ETH Zurich and not proud of it.
Well, okay. I guess we'll take it. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. It has been a blast to get to talk to you both again after, 6.5, 7 years, something like that. And, give it another decade and we'll have you back to talk about everything that's changed since then.
Thank you very much for that.
All right.
For having us.
Yep. Appreciate it.
Bye.
All right. So that was Opencast, and as we said, very academic focused, but particularly I went and looked at that video portal, and very interesting. I really do have a feeling that that'll be interesting to other people outside the academic world. Maybe not the fact that it's all in Java backend, but who's to say?
The video portal is actually written in Rust.
That's something I was thinking about.
So I'm going to have to do some edits anyways. We'll cut this in. Tell me about this.
because the young folks have taken over Opencast and they decided to build in Rust.
You should have written it in Rust. Was that sort of a stressful or controversial thing, or was everybody sort of okay with it?
I think it got unnoticed because we started the project during the pandemic and everyone was busy with something else.
Shh, don't tell the old guys that we're doing it in Rust.
Exactly.
That's great.
No, actually, it was actually part of our policy, wasn't it, Lars, to be open towards new technologies and languages in order to attract new developers. I'm not talking young, but new developers. Is that correct? I remember the discussion we had.
Looking at different new projects or parts actually use newer things. So we have a lot of front ends written as a React app, for example, or something like that. So that's actually somewhat new. And back then, the original was vanilla JavaScript and jQuery and things like that. That at some point got replaced with Angular. That at some point got replaced with React. So we are actually somewhat good with replacing things like that. But looking at the core, it's just so hard to just say, you know what, this hundreds of thousands of lines of code, just let us throw that away and replace that. That's pretty hard. So that's probably staying Java for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
But for side projects, it's different languages.
Anyway, was a great conversation. Appreciate it with the guys. Next week, we are open next week. So if you know of a project that we need to talk to, or you have one, let us know. You can jump on Discord, or you can even email us, floss@hackaday.com, and we will get that scheduled. Other than that, just appreciate everybody being here. Thanks for those that watch and those that download, and we will see you next week on Floss Weekly.